Do you ever get this sense that something's missing in your life? Like there's this gap you just can't seem to close, no matter what you try. Maybe you've been looking for love in places that never quite worked out. Or maybe past hurt has slowly chipped away at your hope that someone could really love and accept you exactly as you are. If any of that sounds familiar, stick with me for a moment, because there's something psychology tells us about human connection that's worth hearing. The people who end up affecting us the most are often feeling that same emotional pull long before either person ever says a word about it. And right now, someone in your life is carrying feelings for you that go way deeper than you probably realize. Yes, really, someone you already know has been quietly waiting for the right moment to let you see what's been building inside them. This isn't some passing interest or surface-level thing. It's something deeper, something emotional, something that's been sitting with them for a while now. And whether you've fully picked up on it or not, this person has already started picturing a future that includes you in ways even they didn't expect. So get ready, because someone wants to step into your life in a real, meaningful way. Someone wants to take this seriously and build something that lasts, not just based on attraction, but on peace, support, trust, and feeling emotionally safe with each other. This person sees you in a way nobody else quite does. They notice the small things most people miss, the way you keep showing kindness even after you've been let down, the quiet strength you carry without making a big deal of it, the way your expression softens when you really care about someone, the way you keep pushing forward even when everything feels heavy inside. Psychologists often talk about how we form deep attachments to people who make us feel safe enough to just be ourselves. And that's exactly what's happened here. At some point, without even meaning to, you became a source of comfort for this person. Familiar, grounding. They started connecting you with a sense of peace. At first, they probably didn't even understand why, because real emotional attachment rarely arrives with a bang. It builds quietly, through small moments, conversations, shared energy, just being present. The human mind naturally attaches itself to consistency, warmth, and that feeling of being truly understood. And over time, you became that feeling for them. This person might already be someone in your life right now. Maybe they've known you for a while, but never said how they really feel. Staying quiet out of fear of rejection, fear of messing up what you already have, or fear that their feelings wouldn't be returned. Or maybe this is someone newer, and your connection has felt strangely familiar from the start, almost like your energies just recognized each other. But one thing has become clear to them. You no longer feel temporary. And that realization changes people. Because once someone forms a deep emotional bond with another person, their mind naturally starts imagining permanence, even without trying to. Suddenly they're picturing ordinary everyday life with you, quiet mornings together, long conversations, supporting each other through hard times, building something steady instead of constantly looking elsewhere. That's what makes this connection different. This person isn't just intrigued by you. They feel pulled toward you in a way that's hard for even them to explain. Psychology actually explains why this happens. We're wired to seek emotional security. We naturally gravitate toward people who make us feel seen without being judged, heard without having to perform, understood without constantly needing to explain ourselves. Those rare connections trigger something powerful in us: safety, attachment, trust. That's why your presence stays in their mind long after a conversation ends. That's why your absence feels heavier than it probably should. That's why certain memories of you keep replaying in their head out of nowhere. You've become emotionally significant to them, and lately, those feelings have only gotten stronger. At night, they think about you more than they'd ever admit. They replay your conversations. They wonder if you can feel the tension between you two. They imagine what it would be like to just fully let themselves love you, openly, without holding back. But alongside that, fear shows up too. Because real connection brings real vulnerability. The deeper the feelings go, the bigger the emotional risk feels. That's why they might seem more careful sometimes, more hesitant, quieter, or more thoughtful than usual. Not because they're unsure about you, but because they're starting to grasp just how much you actually mean to them. There's another layer to why this connection matters so much. You represent something emotionally rare in their life. Not drama, not confusion, not mind games, peace. And people who've lived through emotional chaos often become deeply attached to whoever brings calm into their nervous system. Your presence has become linked for them with comfort, stability, and relief from emotional exhaustion, something that's hard to replace once you've genuinely experienced it. Maybe you've spent a long time believing love would always disappoint you eventually. Maybe you got tired of attention that never turned into real commitment. Maybe you started guarding your heart so carefully that part of you stopped expecting anything serious at all. But this connection feels different because the person drawing closer to you isn't looking for entertainment. They're looking for somewhere to belong, and without fully realizing it, they've started associating that feeling, that sense of belonging, with you. That's why your conversations feel different. Why eye contact sometimes feels heavier than it should. Why even silence between you can feel emotional instead of awkward. Human connection works on a level far below words, long before anyone confesses anything out loud. Body language shifts, focus changes, attention sharpens, little details become unforgettable. And somewhere along the way, you became unforgettable to them. Here's the interesting part. The more they've tried to push these feelings down, the stronger the attachment seems to grow. Psychology calls this emotional reinforcement. When someone keeps thinking about a person they associate with comfort, longing, peace, or meaning, the brain strengthens that emotional connection over time. That's why certain people become harder to forget instead of easier. And you're becoming that person for them, not because you forced anything, not because you chased it, but because emotional depth simply leaves a deeper mark than fleeting attraction ever could. This person wants more than just moments with you, more than occasional attention, more than emotional convenience. They're starting to imagine real partnership, the kind where two people actually grow together emotionally instead of wearing each other down, the kind where honesty matters, where loyalty matters, where simply being present matters. The kind of connection a lot of people quietly want but rarely find. And even though they haven't said any of this out loud yet, something has already shifted inside them. They're no longer asking themselves if you matter. Now they're wondering if they're brave enough to finally show you how much. Deep down, they already know one thing for certain. Life hasn't felt the same since you came into it. A long time, this person convinced themselves they could keep these feelings under control. They thought they could stay calm, stay logical, keep enough distance to avoid being vulnerable. At first, they treated the whole thing casually, telling themselves they were just a little curious, just mildly drawn to you, just for a short while. But something unexpected happened. Instead of fading away, the feelings only got stronger. Psychology explains this pretty clearly. We form emotional attachments through repetition, emotional safety, and significance. When someone keeps showing up in your thoughts, affects your mood, and gives you a sense of comfort your nervous system recognizes as rare, attachment naturally deepens. And that's exactly what's happened here. Without realizing it, this person started organizing parts of their emotional life around you. Your messages affected their mood, your attention affected their energy, even your silence affected their sense of peace. That level of emotional influence scared them because meaningful attachment always comes with risk. The more someone matters, the more exposed your heart becomes. And vulnerability is hard for people who've spent years protecting themselves. This person may have been let down before. They may have trusted people who eventually hurt them. Over time, a lot of people learn to guard themselves, careful about what they share, careful about getting too attached, careful about needing anyone too much. But then you showed up, and suddenly their usual defenses didn't work the way they used to. You made them feel things they thought they'd outgrown. Hope, peace, that quiet excitement, the desire to build something real instead of something temporary. And honestly, that scared them more than they expected, because once someone starts imagining a future with another person, the possibility of losing that future becomes real too. That's why there have been moments where they seemed conflicted. Close one day, distant the next. Moments where they clearly cared but still held something back. It was never about feeling nothing. It was about feeling too much. too quickly. The deeper their feelings got, the more cautious they became. And here's something important to understand. People often pull back emotionally not when they stop caring, but exactly when they realize how much they already do care. That realization changes everything. Suddenly, every interaction feels weightier. Every misunderstanding feels bigger. Every chance of rejection feels scarier. That's the emotional space they've been stuck in. They want to be close to you, but they're also scared of what happens if this becomes something real and then falls apart. Because psychologically, we're wired to fear emotional loss far more than we crave emotional gain. We try to protect ourselves from pain before we even let ourselves enjoy happiness. And your connection with this person has reached the point where happiness and vulnerability now exist side by side for them. Still, no matter how hard they try to manage these feelings, your presence keeps affecting them. They spot you immediately in a crowded room. Their attention naturally drifts toward you. Small details about you stick in their memory longer than they probably should. Even ordinary moments with you somehow feel meaningful to them. That's actually one of the clearest signs of deep emotional attachment. When someone becomes psychologically important to you, your brain starts assigning extra emotional weight to even the smallest interactions involving them. Your smile stays with them. Your voice has this calming effect they didn't expect. Certain things you've said replay in their mind during quiet moments. Even your silence affects them emotionally. And here's the strange part. The more they try to suppress this connection, the stronger it seems to grow, because meaningful emotional attachment doesn't usually fade just because you avoid it. Sometimes distance actually intensifies the focus instead of weakening it. That's why they've been fighting this internal battle. Part of them wants to fully move toward you emotionally. Another part is scared of getting hurt if they do. And lately, that back and forth has become exhausting for them. They're tired of acting like your impact on them is small. Tired of pretending they're unaffected. Tired of carrying feelings they can barely explain to themselves anymore. There have been nights where they lie awake, replaying conversations with you. Moments where they suddenly miss you intensely, even after spending the whole day trying to distract themselves. Moments where they realize nothing else compares to what they feel when they're with you. That comparison changed everything for them, because now they understand this connection isn't casual anymore. It actually matters. And once your heart accepts that something is significant, it gets a lot harder to pretend otherwise. Psychologists call this emotional dissonance, when someone's actions stop matching what they actually feel inside, and emotional pressure starts building. Eventually, something has to give. Either the feelings get expressed honestly, or the internal tension becomes too much to bear. That's the point this person is slowly arriving at. They're now at the edge of being emotionally honest, realizing silence can't go on forever, especially because your absence affects them more than they expected. When you feel distant, they notice immediately. When your attention shifts elsewhere, it unsettles them. When they imagine permanently losing access to you, anxiety starts creeping in ways they can't ignore. Because deep down, they already know one thing. You've become irreplaceable to them emotionally, and that's changing how they think about the future. Where they used to approach relationships casually, now they find themselves imagining stability, consistency, commitment, the idea of building something lasting instead of temporary. You woke that desire in them, not through pressure or manipulation, but simply through emotional depth. Real connection changes people. It changes how they reflect, how they choose, how they dream. And that transformation has already started inside them. But there's still one fear they haven't fully gotten past. The fear that you might not feel the same way. Because as their feelings grow, so does the risk. At this point, they're not just afraid of getting hurt anymore. They're afraid of losing the chance of being with you. That fear keeps them cautious sometimes, holding back, watching for signs before they fully open up. Maybe you've noticed them paying closer attention to how you react, watching your energy carefully, looking for some kind of reassurance in your words. That's not random. When someone starts falling for someone, they naturally look for emotional safety before they let themselves be fully vulnerable. And recently, something happened. A moment, a a small sign, a shift in your energy that gave them hope these feelings might actually be returned. That moment shifted everything for them, because once hope enters the picture, fear starts losing its grip. The moment that changed things for them wasn't dramatic. No big scene, no movie-perfect setup, no grand confession, just one small moment that stuck with them far longer than it should have. And psychologically, that's often exactly how the deepest emotional shifts happen, because real attachment isn't usually built on big gestures. It's built on emotional meaning attached to ordinary moments. For them, that moment involved you. Maybe it was the way you looked at them during a quiet conversation. Maybe it was how naturally you understood something they never fully explained. Maybe it was the gentleness in your voice when you spoke to them. Or maybe it was just the realization that being around you felt emotionally safe in a way they hadn't felt before. Whatever it was, something shifted in them afterward, because suddenly they found themselves asking a question that felt almost dangerous. What if this connection is actually real, not imagined, not temporary, real? That question stuck with them. Psychologists often explain that emotional certainty tends to build slowly. The brain looks for patterns, consistency, and signs of mutual connection before it lets someone fully embrace vulnerability. And little by little, your actions started giving them exactly that. They noticed how your energy softened around them, how your conversations naturally went deeper, how silence between you felt comfortable instead of awkward, how even small moments seemed to carry extra weight afterward. That's when their fear slowly started turning into hope. And hope changes everything. Once someone starts believing their feelings might be returned, their emotional walls start to crumble from the inside. That's exactly what's been happening with this person. Now they catch themselves imagining future moments with you without even trying, places they want to take you, people in their life they want you to meet, routines they picture building together. The mind only does that when emotional attachment has become serious. You're no longer just someone they like. You're becoming part of how they picture their future. And that realization has made everything feel even more intense, because now the connection feels like it's moving in both directions. They're not just attached to you, they're starting to suspect you might feel something too. And that thought alone has kept them up at night more than once. There are moments where they replay conversations with you, looking for hidden meaning in your words. Moments where they wonder if certain glances between you carried more than either of you said out loud. Moments where they question whether your feelings have already started shifting toward them too. And honestly, part of them already believes that's true, because real emotional chemistry is hard to fake over time. People naturally mirror each other's energy when a genuine connection exists. Eye contact lingers a little longer. Attention sharpens. Emotional awareness increases. Small shifts in mood become noticeable right away. They've picked up on these things with you, and it's affected them deeply. The strange part is, even when they try to focus on other things, their mind keeps coming back to you. Psychologists call this emotional salience. When someone becomes emotionally significant, the brain naturally prioritizes thoughts about them, making those thoughts harder to ignore. That's why your name pops into their head at random moments throughout the day. A song reminds them of you. A quiet moment makes them miss you out of nowhere. Certain conversations feel unfinished without you there. Even their mood shifts depending on how connected they feel to you in that moment. That kind of emotional influence doesn't happen by accident. And now they're aware of it. That's why their behavior might feel different lately, more intentional, more thoughtful, more careful, because they're no longer treating this connection as something small. You matter too much to them now. There have been moments recently where they almost told you everything. Times where the truth felt like it was right there, on the tip of their tongue. But vulnerability still scares them sometimes. Not because they doubt how they feel, because they know exactly how they feel now. The fear comes from how much emotional influence you already have over them. When someone becomes important enough to affect your peace of mind, your thoughts, your sense of the future, admitting that out loud suddenly feels like a big deal, because now there's something real at stake. That's why they hesitate before sending certain messages, why they overthink simple conversations, why they seem intense one moment and reserved the next. Internally, they're trying to manage emotions that have grown bigger than their ability to keep them contained. And lately, that pressure has become harder to hide, especially after one realization changed everything for them. They started imagining what it would feel like if someone else eventually took their place in your life. That thought hit them harder than they expected, because for the first time, they understood that this connection is no longer optional for them emotionally. The idea of losing the chance of you genuinely hurts now, and pain reveals attachment fast. Psychology tells us that people often realize how deep their feelings run through the fear of losing someone. When the mind reacts strongly to the idea of someone disappearing for good, it reveals just how important that person has already become. That's what happened here. Suddenly, they weren't asking themselves if they cared anymore. They were asking themselves whether staying silent might cost them you. That fear has been slowly pushing them toward honesty. And the closer they get to that honesty, the harder it becomes to keep pretending this is casual, because deep down, they already know something important. You changed them emotionally. You made them believe real, meaningful love might still be possible. You made them imagine stability instead of chaos. You made them want something deeper than fleeting attraction. And once realizations like that settle into someone's heart, they don't easily reverse. By now, even the people around them have started noticing a change. They seem more thoughtful, more emotionally serious, more reflective than before. That's what happens when someone starts emotionally preparing for something meaningful. Without fully realizing it, they're becoming more emotionally open than they ever expected to be. And here's the most powerful part. They're starting to understand this connection might not just be about attraction at all. It might be about real compatibility, peace, trust, partnership. The kind of connection that can actually last beyond the initial spark. That realization changes everything for them, because now they're not just wondering if you make them happy. They're wondering if you're someone they could genuinely build a life with. And for the first time in a long time, the answer feels almost frighteningly clear to them. Yes. But before they're ready to fully say it, there's one more emotional breakthrough that needs to happen. One more fear that needs to fall away. Because there's something they haven't told anyone yet. A private realization powerful enough that it completely changed how they picture your future together. And once that fully settles in, staying quiet may no longer feel possible. That turning point didn't happen during some big conversation or romantic moment. It happened quietly, alone, in silence, because sometimes the biggest realizations show up when there's nothing left to distract you. Lately, this person has been trying to go about life as usual, working, talking, laughing, doing all the normal things everyone does. But internally, their attention keeps drifting back to you again and again. No matter how hard they try to focus on something else, your presence stays louder than everything around them. At first, that scared them, because psychology tells us that the more emotionally significant someone becomes, the harder it feels to detach from them without losing a piece of yourself in the process. And somewhere along the way, this connection stopped feeling optional for them. You became important, genuinely important, not just because of attraction, but because of how they feel when they're emotionally connected to you, safe, grounded, understood. And once the mind links another person with that kind of emotional peace, attachment naturally deepens over time. That's exactly what happened here. They have realized their feelings for you are no longer casual or uncertain, but have grown into deep emotional attachment, making silence increasingly unbearable as fear of vulnerability clashes with fear of losing something meaningful, and they now find themselves imagining real commitment, future stability, and emotional honesty with you while struggling between protecting themselves and risking everything to finally admit what they feel. Recently, someone close to them noticed the change and asked them directly, "Why do you seem different lately?" At first they brushed it off, but eventually they admitted, quietly, that someone had come into their life who changed how they see love. Someone who feels safe, someone who makes them want to grow emotionally instead of running from it, someone who feels like peace instead of pressure. And even though they didn't say your name right away, the emotion in their voice gave it away. Real attachment changes someone's whole energy, and the people around them can feel it before words ever fully explain it. They are beginning to realize this connection is no longer casual or temporary, but something emotionally real and growing stronger, which is making silence feel heavier and more difficult to maintain. Even though fear of vulnerability still holds them back at times, they are increasingly aware that protecting themselves emotionally is costing them the chance at something meaningful, and that realization is shifting them toward honesty. The more they try to suppress or ignore their feelings, the more intense the attachment becomes, leading to constant thoughts about you, emotional sensitivity in interactions, and a growing sense that this connection feels rare, safe, and deeply significant. Now they are caught at the threshold between fear and truth, where emotional self-protection is losing ground to the need for honesty, and everything between you feels more charged because something real is finally trying to be expressed. This person doesn't want surface-level connection with you anymore. They want real closeness, built on openness instead of guessing, consistency instead of confusion, partnership instead of distance. And for the first time in a long time, they're starting to believe that kind of love might actually be possible with you. That belief is changing them from the inside, making them braver, more honest with themselves, more willing to risk vulnerability for something that matters. Because deep down, they already know one thing for sure. Life changed the moment you came into it. Not temporarily, permanently. And once someone fully accepts that, action usually follows. That's why things might start shifting soon. A deeper conversation, a more meaningful message, a confession quietly woven into something they say, something they can no longer hold back. Because emotionally, they're reaching the point where keeping everything inside feels harder than finally telling the truth. And maybe that's exactly what this whole journey has been building toward for both of you. Not temporary attraction, not emotional games, but real truth. The kind that quietly changes lives before it ever becomes visible. So if this message reached you at the right moment, take a breath and trust this. Some connections come into our lives to teach us hard lessons, but others come into our lives to finally show us what real peace, real safety, and real love can actually feel like. And this connection might be heading toward exactly that.